Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. I'm Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Democrat-Gazette, and very happy to have today a true legend in the state of Arkansas, John Flake, a man as a real estate developer that really changed the Little Rock skyline through the years. Still at it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But, John, thanks for coming in and having a conversation today.
Well, I tell you what, I can't appreciate you for inviting an old man like me to come in and give you a few thoughts, Rex. I've always enjoyed working with you in the past. We've had a great history together, and I really love reading your columns in the Democrat-Gazette, and hope you will continue to do it.
Well, I don't have anything else to do right now, so as long as they'll have me, I assume I will continue to do it. It is a lot of fun, and the most fun part about this job is going all over the state and talking to interesting people and writing about interesting people. And I didn't have to go far this time. My office is in downtown Little Rock, and here you are, and I described you at the first, John, as somebody over the course of your career that has really changed the face of downtown Little Rock.
Well, thank you. I know there's been several others who have also had significant impacts in the city. I speak of one as Jimmy Moses. Jimmy has done a phenomenal job in the work he's done with the river market. This city has really been blessed with many people with good visions and the interest to help the city and do better.
And speaking of doing better in the state's largest city, you recently had a column that ran on the Voices page of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and it got a lot of reaction, which is the best kind of column. We want them to get reaction, and you said that crime has reached the point in Little Rock that it was time for people like you to stand up and say enough, exclamation point, and that it was time for some major changes. Talk a little bit about what you wrote in that column and why you decided to come out in such a public forum.
Well, Rex, that is the first time in my life I've ever written a letter to the editor or had any sort of communication with a newspaper. I felt like at this point we're really at a bridge where we're about to go over. If you look at the crime rate which we have in Little Rock, and then you compare it to other capital cities in the United States, of other capital cities, what I've seen in my research is that Little Rock has the highest per capita level of crime of any other capital city in the country. And that really worries me, because when I returned to Little Rock in the 70s to work in business here, we were a very peaceful, small southern city, had a great city board of directors. We were very well managed, and for some reason, along that period of time, we've had crime issues and we've had school issues. I think we've had a terrific job done with our recent retiring school superintendent. I think
he was a recent guest on this podcast, by the way.
Oh, good. Good.
And I had to break in and say I agree with you. He has done such a wonderful job with the Little Rock School District in recent years.
And I'll tell you what, and I go back as far as 1988 when I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce here in Little Rock, and we were talking to a company out of state, and it was a Fortune 500 company, and they were looking at relocating possibly to Little Rock, or at least having an operation here in Little Rock. And they had actually taken out 6 months in advance a copy of the Little Rock newspaper. Mm-hmm. And they knew as much about Little Rock as most of us did. And they told us at that time, they said, "What are you going to do about your schools?" They were very, very concerned about our schools. And similarly today, when people read our papers or look at anything on the internet about Little Rock, it's crime, crime, crime. And these other cities are not facing such horrible statistics as we are. I can give you an example that with regionalization, which is what I was promoting in the article I wrote, if you take Nashville, Nashville is run by a county police force. It's Metropolitan Nashville Police Force, which would mean that you have all of the various local governments united into one police force. That has been very successful. What that means is that you don't have a Sherwood Police, a Kamak Village Police, a North Little Rock Police, a Little Rock Police, a Jacksonville Police. You have one common force with all the money, federal money and everything, sent to that one sole force. I think if you did that, you'd get tremendous economies of scale out of it. You'd be able to pay the officers more money. And if you look at how effective our Water Commission is doing right now, the Little Rock Water Commission is doing a terrific job on a regional basis where everybody kicks in, and we're just not in a position, I don't think, anymore to operate as one single unit here and one unit over there. I think we need to go together and work together so that we're united in law enforcement particularly, but also in fire and other places where we can have economies of scale, save money, pay the people more. By God, we need to pay our police officers and our firemen much more money than what they're making, just like we need to pay our teachers more. I mean, these people they're either protecting us or they're educating our kids for the future.
Do you think we can get over the political obstacles, John, to make that happen? Obviously, we did with the Central Arkansas water system, as you mentioned. And as you said, that has been, in my mind, a tremendous success for Central Arkansas.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, Rex, that we have here is overcoming the turf battle, if you would, among various governments of saying, I don't want to give up my own police department. If they would look at the big picture and see what it would do if we could unite and have all these forces to get working together under one umbrella. For instance, I've suggested Sheriff Eric Higgins, who I think has been one of the best sheriffs that we've had here in the last 50 years. And I think if someone like Sheriff Higgins, with his caliber, were leading a county-wide force, it would prove that we can do things that we couldn't do if we're just working on our own. And again, back to the Water Commission, it's proven that we can do really great things. The Water Commission has been doing a fantastic job in operating and in providing new services where it's needed.
Just to change the subject there for a minute, because we're talking about Central Arkansas as a whole, the availability of water and the quality of it. I mean, we are voted the best drinking water in the country. Often my wife, who's right now in Charleston, South Carolina, anytime she travels, John, she says, I miss Little Rock water. That's a real selling point from an economic development standpoint, isn't it?
It is. And, if you look at other businesses here, some people buy bottled water. I, for one, would rather have Little Rock water. It's just terrific quality.
With your career, John, as you mentioned, you really, if you wanted to, I would say you certainly would deserve to kick back, sleep late, drink coffee, read this paper from cover to cover, whatever you wanted to do, write a novel. But you're still at it. I mean, even in the midst of a pandemic, when we saw very few announcements for a time in the pandemic, you announced work on what I refer to as the old AP&L building in downtown Little Rock, but you're still out there plugging, aren't you? And still plugging in Little Rock itself.
Yes, I'm sorry, my DNA will not allow me to stay at home and read the papers you suggested and play golf or whatever. I've got to be out, active, and doing something. And I've found that the secret to working longer is surrounding yourself with very competent and intelligent younger people around you so they can carry you where it might be difficult for you because of your age. And a good example of that is I recently formed a partnership with Tyler Wilson. Everybody thinks of Tyler Wilson as the all-time career passing record for the University of Arkansas. Tyler is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. He's phenomenal. He reminds me of earlier years of Roger Staubach. Roger had a phenomenal career in football, and then went and founded and it became actually one of the largest real estate companies in America that is just representing tenants. And Tyler is in a class with Roger, business-wise. And there's people like that out there that need some leadership, but already have the tools intellectually, physically, and whatever to go ahead and to take it to the next level.
You know, Tyler came to visit me, well, it's been more than 5 years ago because I've been back here at the paper full-time for almost 5 years now, but it was when I was still at Simmons Bank, John, and he said, I'm just going around the city getting to know people, and I want to have an impact. And that was so impressive to me that a person of his age then would be doing that, would be setting up appointments all over town and really inserting himself into the life of the community and getting to know people. And I think it's incumbent to all of us, certainly above the age of 60, which I am now, to be bringing on that next generation of leadership. And that's certainly what you've done by partnering with Tyler now.
Yes, and you said age 60. How about age 70, which I am?
Yeah.
And if you take somebody 70, you've got to have younger people that are supporting your activities, but younger people who are intelligent, honest, and hardworking.
Absolutely. And you're getting to work with your daughter now, John. I've got to talk about that.
Sure, that is a real blessing. My daughter is, I don't know where she got her brains. It was not for me, but she is clearly one of the most intelligent people I've ever worked with. She's got both her MBA, a CPA, a CFA. She's in the process of getting her master's in finance from Johns Hopkins and not going up there. She's doing this literally by the internet. So having the pleasure to work with somebody in your family every day has really been a blessing for me, and I can't tell you how much I enjoy getting up in the morning knowing I'm going to go in and work with my daughter.
Yeah, and you know, when she was an undergrad 30 years ago, and I was the political editor of this newspaper in those wild days of the Clinton campaign and the Clinton presidency, she interned with us one summer up here in the newsroom, you might remember, John.
She did, and she was also an intern in Washington and at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
So she's had quite a career in both writing and is in the paper and also in the political processes in the administration.
Talk a little bit, I mentioned that old AP&L building. Talk a little bit about that, because it is really an architectural gem, and I'm so glad that it's not just going to sit there empty anymore.
Right, and we've been very, very careful with it, Rex. This property, as you said, is an architectural gem. It's on the National Historic Register, and we are very aware of that, so we're being very, very careful in our planning not to impact anything which they would determine would be of historic interest. We still believe we're going to find a nice restaurant to locate on our ground level.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some technology companies which we're working with on the upper floors, and while it is a building which is old, is on the register, we're attempting to convert that using the latest technology so that people that are employees will feel safe going back to work. We're hoping to be a very, very pandemic clear property. We're doing things where it's how you touch the elevator buttons to lighting. You just go down the list. If it involves the environment, we're working on it.
We'll be back with more of the Southern Fried Podcast, but first, this break. Hi, Rex Nelson here. Thanks for listening so far. A lot of the topics we cover here on the Southern Fried Podcast and many more can be found on the pages of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. If you'd like to support this great newspaper's commitment to bringing you the latest in Arkansas news, sports, and entertainment, consider subscribing to the Democrat-Gazette today. With your subscription, you'll get a digital edition of the newspaper every morning, along with the latest news and updates delivered to you on an iPad, provided at no extra cost. For just $34 a month, you'll get the same award-winning journalism you've come to expect from the Democrat-Gazette, including my 3 weekly columns, plus exclusive photo galleries, videos, articles, and digital extras, all in the palm of your hand. To sign up today, call 1-800-482-1121 or visit us online at arkansasonline.com/subscribe. Welcome back to the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. As we talk, knock on wood, we seem to be coming out of this 2-year pandemic nightmare. And as I step back, and I mentioned I work here in downtown Little Rock. I love downtown Little Rock. I want to see the best for it. You know, I see pockets doing well. I mean, we've got the River Market. We've got across the interstate what they're calling East Village now. We've got South Main Street. But then I look up Capitol Avenue here. 2 of our towers we talked about have been in the news for financial problems and lawsuits. A lot of empty storefronts, a lot of tacky looking, frankly, surface parking on what in my mind should be the state's grandest boulevard going up to the state capitol. So it's kind of a mixed bag right now. Give me, because you've been so intimately involved for decades, give me your thoughts on where you think downtown is right now and where you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, Rex, you hit on a point which is very, very clear, and that is Capitol Avenue. Capitol Avenue in any other state should be the entranceway into the state capitol. And it is, but you sure wouldn't drive down it and expect it to be that. The building I developed in 1984, which was then Capitol Tower, is now Simmons Tower. That building has stayed relatively full. We've not had much vacancy at all, unlike the Region Center, which is having significant problems, and candidly, the Bank of America
building. Yeah.
Those buildings have suffered. We've been able to continue operating very efficiently and full. I think that it's going to take state assistance to help redo and enliven Capitol Avenue. And by that, I think that it's going to take a governor and a legislature that recognize that this is not just for Little Rock. It's not just a Little Rock effort. People that come to the state need to see what we're all about, and Capitol Avenue is the entrance to our state. And I would hope that as Sarah Sanders becomes our governor, that she would take a real interest in working with the leadership here in Little Rock to advance the redevelopment of Capitol Avenue. And I'm thinking, in my mind, Rex, I'm thinking of a street in Boston, which was, and I believe it's Massachusetts Avenue, which was recently redeveloped to where it's sort of a parkette effect all the way up and down the street. They have in one place a small restaurant that's there, but it's nice, it's open, it's pedestrian friendly, and you want to do it. So I think that if we got to a point of where we could work on a project like that, creating an effect, a park-like atmosphere from, let's say, Broadway down to the Capitol, I think that would significantly improve the attractiveness of our city.
You know, I was so excited because it's almost right next door to where we are now, right before the pandemic, when they did restore a couple of old buildings for what's the AC Marriott, which is a very hip hotel brand, and it opened, and bless their hearts, they opened right at the start of a pandemic. They have somehow survived the last 2 years, but I really thought when that opened that the storefronts adjacent to it, we would see some really hip restaurants and bars in there by now. Due to the pandemic, we have not, but I've got some columns coming up on that. I agree with you. There is a lot of potential on Capitol Avenue, but you're right. It's going to take a joint effort. It's going to take the state, the city, and the private sector, I think, all working together to get it done.
Yeah, and if you look at the example back in the 1970s when the city fathers founded what was called Metro Center. Metro Center was a flawed concept back then because one thing, the taxes and how you had to pay for that was only allocated to a certain few people. So as an example, later when the River Market was being developed, the River Market was not part of Metro Center, even though Metro Center really helped the River Market. So when we do something on a private basis, we need to include everybody that is enjoying the benefits of what we're doing. It should not be just one. In other words, it should not just be the people that have properties along Capitol Avenue.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be a real key going forward. One thing I tell people, and I think it's great for our state, what's going on in Northwest Arkansas, but that is a collection of smaller cities compared to the population of Little Rock. And one thing I tell people, if you want what I consider a true urban experience, especially living, if you want to live in a true urban experience with the high rises and so forth, downtown Little Rock is really the only place in Arkansas that you can have that true urban experience.
I totally agree. And if you look at how the development occurred in Northwest, there is a council, the Northwest Council, which is all the leading businesses up there. And if they wanted something done, it happened. And, anymore, there seems to be here locally a lot of division in that if somebody wants something for West Little Rock, then the people on the east side don't want it. And similarly, if the people in Southwest Little Rock want something, then the people in West don't want it. We've all got to we're in this all together for each other. And we've got to work together on a very nonpartisan basis and try to say what's good for one part of the city is good for the rest of it.
And I wrote a column recently, John, and I know you agree with this because you've devoted so much of your career to downtown, but I wrote that a city is only as strong as its heart, which is its downtown, and a state is only as strong as its state capital. So those folks in Northwest Arkansas have to realize that the state as a whole really can never fully achieve its potential if its capital city is not doing well, right?
You hit the nail right on the head, and I know that people in South and in Northwest Arkansas and Northeast Arkansas, sure the legislators are saying, well, why should we send money here when it's not in my district? Well, it gets back to how do you want the entrance to our state capital to look? Do you want it to look like you just described it earlier, or do you want to have it a really nice parquet setting all the way down to the Capitol, so when visitors come in and make that drive down there, it's a really pleasing thing, and it shows that we're all working together. And I think, as I mentioned, the state has to work with the city to make this happen, or otherwise it's not going to work.
Before we run out of time, John, I did want to get a little bit into your history because it's so fascinating. Talk about how you got into real estate development. How did that even start?
Well, my father started a company here. It was primarily residential in 1932.
32,
and,
wow.
My oldest brother, who is deceased now, Dixon, came back and worked with my father for some time, and then he formed a company in 1971, which was then called Barnes, Quinn, Flake and Anderson. I worked with Dixon for about 7 years, and then decided I wanted a different way of developing property than what they were doing. So I first set up my own company in 1979. In 1983, we discovered that the electric company, Arkansas Power and Light, was located in 25 different locations around downtown.
Holy cow.
So we went to them and said, wouldn't you like to consolidate all 25 locations into one location? And that's what we did. That's what started the Capitol Tower. They took 16 of the 40 floors. By the same time, there had not been any recent new space done, so we attracted Merrill Lynch into the building. We attracted one of the state's largest law firms, a large accounting firm, Frost & Company, and it quickly filled up. So when we opened, we were 55% occupied before the doors even opened. So
wow.
It really worked well.
I know it was a proud project for you. I ended up working out of that building, of course, when I was working for Simmons, and I think when you built it at 40 stories, do I remember correctly that you advertised it? Going north south, the tallest building between New Orleans and Chicago, and going east to west between Dallas and Atlanta.
That is exactly right, and I know that has now been broken. That record has been broken, but it was great advertising at the time when we were marketing it. So that project was great. Here I am, 74 today. I worked on it when I was 33. Mm-hmm. So I don't think at 74 I'd go back and do a project that difficult again.
Well, you're working on some exciting projects as it is, but that one, again, certainly changed the entire face of the capital city. And as you mentioned, unlike some of the other towers in downtown, your occupancy rates have remained pretty high. Do you see, I'm sensing it here. We were talking about it before we started taping. I'm sensing it elsewhere. Do you sense that people are coming back to work? There was this early in the pandemic, nobody's ever going to come back to the office. But my sense is we've discovered it's hard to collaborate when you're not in the office. And I think there's a lot of Zoom fatigue out there among people there. I do see people coming back to the office now.
Yes, and I agree with you, Rex. People are coming back, and frankly, not just because of the necessity of work. It's not any fun working at home by yourself.
No, it's not.
You want to get in.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, the collegial atmosphere of trying to get everybody in, working together. And I mean, I like going to an associate's birthday party that day, which we didn't do during the pandemic. Everybody stayed away from each other. And, now we can all collaborate, and there's no person that has the one right answer. And I really like going in and talking to some peers and bouncing an idea off of them and saying, what do you think about this? Do you think this will work? Should I tweak it? What should I do? You can't do that if you're staying at home.
Back to Little Rock and back to Central Arkansas. Again, John, before we finish up, recent guests that I've had, there are several trends here that frankly lead me to be pretty optimistic. One is the distribution and logistics hub that we are suddenly becoming. I mean, my gosh, they don't announce the number, but I'm told Amazon's already got more than 3,000 people working inside that facility at the port. They're building another big facility in North Little Rock, be over 1,000 in there. That's over 5,000 new jobs. And then you've got, you've got Dollar General coming in here. You've got Tractor Supply Company coming in here. So we're really becoming a distribution and logistics hub. And then if you look over on the financial side with the growth of Banco ZK, the growth of Simmons that we've talked about, kind of a financial hub too. I think those two trends bode pretty well for Central Arkansas going forward.
I definitely agree with you, and I think that our leadership we have at the Little Rock Port has been phenomenal. I think they have been very aggressive in going after companies and making them deals that entice them to come here. And if you look at our transportation system, Interstate 40 is just a major transportation artery throughout the United States, and we're right here in the center of it. So if you ask any of the big trucking companies, they're going to be near Little Rock or close to Little Rock, certainly.
So back to Little Rock, back to the state capital, the crime problems we talk about, the need to redo Capitol Avenue, all in all, do you remain pretty optimistic about the city as a whole?
Yes, Rex, I'm optimistic, and I have to be optimistic about crime because we have no choice. I mean, we cannot sweep that under the rug and say we don't have this problem. We do have the problem. It's not getting any better. So I am optimistic. It's going to be addressed. And, by my writing that article, I was hoping to at least throw out an idea of what we could be doing. And I don't care whose idea it is. We just need to get it fixed. But I am optimistic that'll work.
We got a lot of feedback, as I said. Will you write some more guest pieces for us? We'd love to have you on the Voices page more often.
I appreciate it. I think I'm one and done after that one.
It was great to hear. John, thank you for all you have meant to this city and this state through the years. Really appreciate all you have done. Appreciate your friendship. And I've got to tell you, as somebody who loves Arkansas deeply, I'm glad you're still out there plugging on a daily basis and not on the golf course.
Yeah,
and trying to make Arkansas better. Still.
I know that. I know you work every day, and I look forward to reading you. And I'll say to your listeners, if you're missing Rex, then you're missing reading about Arkansas.
I didn't get John in here to get the ad, but thank you very much. Legendary real estate developer John Flake. Let's do it again one time. I enjoyed the conversation.
I'd love it, but I'm just not going to write another article.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you, Rex.
Thanks, John, and thank you for joining us for another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.